I'm going to start this meeting of the Economic Development Authority. It is Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. Would you take roll call, Heather?
Sure. Commissioner Betker?
Here.
All right, and Commissioner Betker is attending via Zoom. Commissioner Brahm?
Here.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Here.
Commissioner Peterson?
Here.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes, here.
We're going to move to the next item on the agenda, and that is to receive and order file the public notice.
I'll offer the motion.
Second.
We'll take roll call. Any discussion? If not, we'll take roll call. Heather?
Commissioner Betker?
Yes.
Commissioner Brahm?
Yes.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
Great, approved. We are going to move on to the next item, and that is the oath of office. We have a couple of new members on our committee, so welcome, Mark, and welcome, Andrea, to the Economic Development Authority Committee. Heather, would you take it on?
All right, so if Commissioner Schwartz and Peterson could stand up and raise your right hand. And we'll all do the oath together. So I state your name.
Mark Peterson. Les Schultz.
And
Did I hear Andrea?
Andrea has to do it by.
Andrea, you should be doing this with
There you
us.
go.
I thought so. By Andrea
She's
Betker.
standing up, though, I can't tell.
Good enough, good enough.
We'll take her word for it. Do solemnly swear
Do
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of the office of Commissioner of the Economic Development Authority
of the office of Commissioner of the Economic Development Authority,
said city of New Ulm,
said city of New Ulm,
in the county of Brown
in the county of Brown,
and state of Minnesota,
in the state of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and abilities.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Heather. Again, welcome, Mark. Good to have you back, Les, and welcome, Andrea. Moving on, I am only temporarily running this meeting, so we do have the election of officers. And we'll start out with if I can get some nominations, please. We'll start with President.
Vice Chair, I would have a nomination of Dan Brown as president.
I would second that nomination.
Would you accept, Dan?
Yes.
All right. Should we do all of them at one time? Continue on, or you want to do them separately?
Legally, you're supposed to call for nominations 3 times.
Oh,
You
let's
did
do that.
once, So you should call it
Let's
2
do
more times.
any other nominations for the position of president. Hearing none, the third time, any nominations for the position of president? Hearing none. All in favor, do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Betker,
Yes.
Commissioner Brahm,
I should abstain?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni? Yes. Commissioner Peterson? Yes. And Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
Moving on, I'll finish this out, and then I'm going to hand it over to President Dan. Let's go with the position for vice president.
I nominate Sue Fix.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Going third time, any other nominations? All in favor, roll call, please?
All right, President, oh, no, I should do Commissioner Betker,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Abstain.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
and President Brahm.
Yes. I like getting to vote last. I'm just going to say that. I used to be first, and I thought, well, Andrea's Betker instead of Brown, but now I'm last, so I'm okay with that.
Let's go for Commissioner in the position of Secretary Treasurer for the EDA. Nominations? please?
I would like to nominate Jessica Yanni, if I am able to as president, or I suppose I can't.
I'll second.
Nominations for Secretary Treasurer? And the third time. Any nominations for Secretary Treasurer? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bedker,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
No, President Braun.
I'm so sorry.
And that's a resounding yes.
And
I
with-
know, I'm still writing 2020 on things, so, you know.
president for a
As much as I
number
want
of
to
years.
forget last year, you know, so, anyway.
And with that, I am going to turn the meeting over to our president. So
Okay.
you will have to log in. I'm having issues here. Oh, okay, would you take it
Change
from there?
seats because of,
Wonderful,
you know,
go
this
for it.
whole social pandemic thing,
Oh, yeah,
so.
here you go.
Okay, well, let's move on to item 5.1. Oh, I get
Get the hammer.
the gavel, okay. With it comes great powers. Item 5.1, approval of the minutes of our December 8th, 2020 meeting.
I'll move them.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion regarding our minutes from December 8th? Hearing none, I'll call for the roll call for vote.
Commissioner Bedker,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
President Brum.
Yes. Item 6.1 is to accept the Economic Development Authority administrative activities for the month of December. We would like to receive the report, Heather?
All right, I'm just waiting for it to come up here. I just have a couple items to highlight for you for the December activity report. Note under the Homebuyer Assistance Loan Program, one application was received and approved in the amount of $5,625, and the closing is scheduled for January 15th. That's our first one for the year. And then under the Garden Terrace report, the unit updates are being scheduled for the tenants who opted in for the apartment upgrades. Appliances have been ordered. Delivery is expected mid-February, but that is subject to change. Appliances have been very unreliable as far as when they're going to be received lately. So that could get pushed back if they are not delivered on time.
Any comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
I'll make a motion to accept the EDA administrative activities for the month of December 2020.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Heather, could you please call the roll for vote?
Commissioner Bedker,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
President Brum.
Yes. Item 7.1 would be EDA claims approved through January 12th. Is there anything of note on there, Heather, that we should be aware of?
I guess just the annual rental registration for the public housing properties are on this month. That's about the only out of the ordinary.
I'll offer a motion to approve the claims list for January 12th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Otherwise, let's again call the roll for a vote.
Commissioner Bedker. Commissioner Bedker,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
President Brum.
Yes. Item 8.1, to transfer funds from Garden Terrace Economic Development Authority. This would be a resolution and a waive of the reading to transfer $100,000 from the Garden Terrace Fund to the EDA Fund.
Commissioners, this is just a transfer just to cover that amount that we gave to the school district. So it's just putting the EDA's checking account right with the Garden Terrace Fund. So because it's moving between funds, I have to have a resolution approval.
Okay. They've made no official request yet for the funds?
They actually have. They submitted an invoice to move the
They
project
have,
forward.
okay,
Yep.
good. Okay, so that means they're moving forward.
Yep.
Wonderful, okay.
I'll offer the resolution and waive the reading to transfer $100,000 from the Garden Terrace Fund to the EDA Fund.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, let's call the roll for vote.
Commissioner Bedker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
President Brom?
Yes. Next item, item 8.2, is the staff report to allocate funds in the amount of $50,000 for the Small Business Incentive Grant Program.
And this is the small business grant that we started back in 2019. In 2020, we gave out all 5 grants, so we're just asking to replenish that back up to 50,000 so we can give out grants for 2021.
So can you talk a little bit more about that? Did we spend it like the first couple months? I mean,
No, this was through the year. The last one was given out at the end of the year. Because what happens, as part of the grant, the businesses have to be open for 3 months in order to apply. What we usually do, if they come in and they're open, we will set it aside, 1 grant aside to make sure they hit that 3-month threshold. And the last one we gave out was one of those businesses.
so it's only for new businesses?
Yep.
Is this something that you think we should zero in on in 2021? And because we certainly want to encourage new businesses to open up, is this something we should be looking at more closely in 2021?
I don't think so. Every year we've given out pretty much the entire amount. So 2019 we gave out 4, but that was towards the end of the year when we approved it. In 2020 we've
Not getting
given out.
50 requests.
No, because again, it's new businesses, and this also is, the only home-based business that is eligible for this grant is Daycare, and we did get 1 daycare, home-based daycare, or in-home daycare apply for the grant and get it.
Do you have an idea or a breakdown of the types of businesses that did receive the grants last year, Chris?
Not off the top of my head. It was primarily, I think it was Inspired Bridal got 1, Becky's Bakes. Were 2 off the top of my head that I know, so
Okay.
it's the newer businesses
So
opening up.
We're not necessarily centering in on a particular business type.
No.
It's been fairly diverse. Okay.
Yep.
I'll certainly offer the motion, but I'm just going to kind of add that if you see some growth in this area and we run out of money, that I'd like to see staff bring this back to us to further consideration to add more money to this program, because I think it's really important this time of year.
Well, yeah, and I just might add too, with the current state of
Yeah.
our business climate and the economy, that this might be something that may go out the door a lot faster, maybe in this year than maybe in past years too. So yeah, to keep an open eye to that, and I would agree with Mr. Schultz, that would be something we could certainly revisit.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion at this time? Hearing none, we'll call for the roll on the vote.
Commissioner Bedker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
President Brom?
Yes. On to item 8.3, a discussion of EDA priorities.
I just updated, we came up with a list of priorities and strategies last year, and I just wanted to update you on the progress we made in 2020, and then extend forward the items that have not yet been completed into 2021. And this is open for discussion if there's things you think we should change or add, so that staff are focusing on the things that you want us to focus on in the upcoming year. So you can see that under housing, we sold the remaining 8 lots in the Milford Heights First Edition, and we completed soil borings on the Garden Terrace 3 lot. Under business attraction, the decision was made not to fund retail strategies for a second year. We expanded the limited loan program. We renewed the Small Business Development Corporation, is that what that stands for? SBDC contract
Center.
for 2021. Purchase software to track economic development efforts. Under business retention, we increased the maximum for commercial rehab loans without board approval from $25,000 to $50,000. And we also increased the maximum loan amount from $50,000 to $75,000. We developed multiple COVID relief programs throughout the year as the situation evolved and changed. Under workforce development, a federal grant application was submitted for ISD 88 to build their regional career and technical education center, as well as approved $100,000 in funding to ISD 88 for the CTE center. So those are the things that were accomplished in 2020. I think it was a very good and productive year. And then moving forward, like I say, I just carried the unfinished items forward to 2021 and beyond, but there's, certainly room to add things there if you have suggestions or issues you'd like us to focus on. And then the third page just gives you a financial summary of what we have available for programs in the upcoming year. Just a little over $1 million, it looks like, $1.1 million.
I know I'm going to put you on the spot, Heather, but do you know if there have been any building permits issued for any of the lots in Milford Heights 1?
Of the 8 lots that we sold, 2 houses are under construction. They're about
Wonderful.
halfway done. They
Wonderful.
plan to
Okay.
build 2 per year, so they're on their first 2.
Okay, good.
I was just going to make a comment about last year that this commission and staff really stepped up last year, and we made some major decisions, and we did some really good things, and we should be really proud of what we accomplished last year. With COVID, we stepped in with several loans. We sold our lots. The CTE center, $100,000 was huge, and we strongly all supported that. And I think we just did some really great things last year. So I don't want to oversee that. We did a lot of good work last year with staff assistance and help. And you're going to talk about 2021?
I can, if you want me to read through the,
It's up to the president, I guess.
Well, I would think so, right? We want to look forward. I just have one quick question, too. We did set up another round of targeted grants for people impacted by the latest shutdown. Do we have any numbers? Did we get some applications in on those, Chris?
We did. I was going to cover that in the economic development
I
report.
figured I'd be jumping ahead. Sorry about that. Okay, on to 2021 then, Heather. Sorry about
all
that.
right. So then under housing, under immediate goals, single-family rehab loan program, and that is in the works. We were debating putting it on this agenda or waiting until next month, and we chose to push it to next month. At some point, we'll look at a multifamily rehab loan program for landlords to rehab their rental units, possibly do a Garden Terrace 3 feasibility study to see if there's a need and what type of need for housing on that property. Develop a grant program for new single and multifamily residential construction. Intermediate goals for housing, develop rentals above downtown business, and long-term housing goals, soil remediation on Garden Terrace 3 lot. That'll depend on if a developer is interested in doing something there, and it might be part of the incentive package that maybe we'll offer to pay for the remediation, but that's, to be determined. And then in 2022, we'll need to update our housing study. It was last done in 2017, and we kind of have a goal of every 5 years to get that updated. And that does get used by developers and does bring a lot of new housing to our community. So it's important to keep those updated. And when they hear we're working on one, they want it hot off the press. They're chomping at the bit to get that new study. So want to make sure we keep up on that. Under business attraction, immediate goals, create a 10 steps brochure for new businesses, develop a shovel-ready certification program, potentially acquire or rehab a building to lease to a child care provider, develop an economic development website. And that really, I could have put under any of the 4 columns. That's kind of an across-the-board goal. We don't have anything under immediate goals there, and then long-term goals, potentially explore the retirement destination concept and potentially acquire New Ulm Economic Development Corporation land. Under business retention, immediate goals, work with childcare businesses considering expansion, develop new construction grant program to help with fees such as public utilities hookup, building permit, etc. Under intermediate goals, recommend tax abatement for downtown properties that make improvements, and we don't have anything under the long-term goals there at this time. Under workforce development immediate goals, provide a one-day mandatory childcare training opportunity. And that actually was scheduled to be done in 2020, but was postponed due to COVID, so we're hoping to accomplish that this year. Under immediate goals, consider additional funding requests from ISD 88 to help with their CTE center operating expenses, and we don't have anything under long-term goals there at this time. So, like I said, if you feel there's something we're missing or there's some gaps that we need to fill in, now would be the time to bring those ideas forward.
Yeah, this is a great time for discussion. So, what do we want to prioritize both for this year and even going forward from there? Does this roadmap look like it's adequate for the direction we want to go? Not to put the new people on the spot, but it's always great getting fresh perspectives too, because everybody has something to bring to the table. I'd be very open to further discuss any of these items. It was funny, you were mentioning the childcare training. My daughter is a daycare provider, and we got together last night, and she's got to go to Mankato to do her first aid training because there wasn't a class here locally that wasn't on a weekend. She's got kids in the house during the week, so it's either take time off or find something out of town on the weekend. So I think you might think that that's a little thing or whatever to consider, but there are impacts of that we maybe want to try to address. And I think all of that kind of flows into that whole system where we want to try to keep that sort of thing active and ongoing. And just that little comment from her just made me start thinking like, oh, couldn't we get weekend update training and for first aid and CPR and those sorts of things locally or whatever? So, and I don't know what resources, I'm not trying to point fingers or anything. It was just a funny observation, and that you mentioned it there, Heather, and I think, oh, that is an important topic, so.
I know under immediate for business attraction, we have the potentially acquire or rehab a building to lease to a child care provider. Is that really as immediate anymore now that daycare is open, or do you all still feel that should be on our immediate radar?
I was kind of actually thinking the same thing. It might be interesting to know what are our current needs based on that. Because that facility I know filled up right away, is what I've heard. So we maybe need to either do a quick study or bring in our social service folks that do the licensing and see how many requests they're getting. That might be interesting to tell us where we're at, because we get some daycare homes that retire every year, and then we get some folks that come in new every year, but where's that balance been? And this group has helped out. I mean, we have led a charge a number of years ago to take a look at that, which kind of helped get this program up and running, and the EDA has done some funding on some things, and the city next year agreed not to or waive the fee for any incoming new daycare facilities. So maybe either city staff could either talk to the county folks and get their input on what they see, or maybe invite one of them to a meeting to talk to us. And I'm sure they probably would be willing to do that, or at least give us their input. It is certainly incredibly important, because there was a time there when, and I'm not hearing it as much, I don't know how other people are, but it was where people weren't able to go back to work after they're having a child because there was no daycare for the newborns. It still might be the issue, I'm just not hearing about it as much. But I think we would hear that from the county. They would tell us give us a better idea where we're at with that.
Has COVID impacted this at all, in the sense that people are at home, working at home, and the need might not be there as much that it might have leveled off.
Be part of why you're not hearing it as much,
Maybe,
because
could be.
people are working from home,
Ma-
so it's hard to say.
Many employers, if their employees are working from home, still require the parents to have adequate daycare, if, so I don't think it completely, resolves the situation. It can in some instances, perhaps. My question is, and I don't recall, can we do a daycare study similar to a housing study? Are there organizations or groups out there that offer those types of services, to do a comprehensive study of daycare like we would similar to housing?
Back when we organized, 5, 6 years ago, when I chaired that committee, we brought in professionals, we brought in the county, we brought in, oh man, I'm trying to remember who was all at those meetings, large employers, and we got a really good feel, especially from the county, how many daycares had closed, how many had opened, what their need was, what the training needs were. The county really had a pretty good feel for it, I thought.
Okay.
I don't know, we'd have to see what they'd have to say now, and
Well, and that would be something that if we were to engage them, I would be open to us, if that involves extra staff time and cost, that we could underwrite some of that cost on their behalf too. Because I think it's important, it's a good idea to get an assessment as far as where we're at, and then maybe what our next steps should be. So if we could engage at least and see if there's that willingness, and then we could participate in offering some of that cost associated with doing some of that research.
and they really appreciated the help when we
Yeah.
worked on this years ago. so
Sure.
I would assume they still are as well, but I see Andrea's wanting to say something.
Sorry, I don't know the best time to jump in. My thought on that is, for years, we've been hearing from our community the problems with the daycare shortages. And to think that just because the wheel isn't squeaking right now, that's going to be something that we feel like, it sounds like, oh, well, maybe we've solved this because the demand isn't there. But when I look at all of the other priorities and strategies, more single family housing, more multifamily housing, business attraction, business retention, all of those things are going to continue to create the need for more daycare. And we know that it's been a struggle to get daycares open, and it's going to continue to be a struggle to do that. So I do believe that it still should be an immediate need. I think it's great that they're looking to acquire and rehab a building to use for childcare. But I mean, my personal opinion is that I do feel that still is an immediate need, and that we should work towards that. And depending on what some type of a feasibility study is or a need study is, I'd be for that. But I think that we should just continue to press forward with that, because I don't see that need has gone away.
And just to project another concept with it, when we had that committee going 4 years ago, a group of us from town went over to Owatonna for a really good training on how to increase daycare in your local community. And everybody thinks, well, businesses should just open up daycares in their facility, and that really wasn't recommended as part of a long-term plan, primarily because it fills up right away with local people, and really ends up being a lot of problems internally at that corporation when only a certain number of people get the 15 slots. Their recommendation for communities our size was taking a look at our churches and church basements, and they're open, and depending on how big they are, because they have food service, they have bathrooms, so that was a recommendation to consider the religious sector in your communities as potential opening. And the other thing was adding on to current facilities was also recommended, to look at your EDAs, to look at providing loans to add on for 10 more spots or whatever. So those are recommendations from that particular group back then. So just food for thought. I would recommend next month, see if we can either get written recommendations or see if someone from the county, the daycare licensing person, to come and give us a report and talk to us. if people are okay with that,
Yeah, it sounds good. I
That'd
think
be a
that's a
start.
place, yeah.
to find out, we won't get exact data, but we'll get some general feelings of where things are at.
Okay.
But you'd asked the question earlier, Dan, we wanted to hear from the new people.
Yes. And we
I was-
have.
So put Mark on.
You bet. I was looking more at the business retention and expansion of our current businesses that we have in our community, and looking at, there's not a lot of things that, on the list that talk about helping our current businesses expand. And maybe we need to look and ask our economic developer if Audra would have, from her meetings, if she goes out on calls to our current businesses, what is she hearing from them, and what can we possibly come up with to offer some assistance there? I don't know what's been offered in the past, other than, we have the commercial rehabilitation program, but I think there's more need for things than just that, probably, so. I don't know if Audra's had,
She normally will report monthly on activities that she's engaged in, over the course of the previous month, and kind of give us an update. So some of that is going on, and that's not to mean that maybe we need to make improvements. One of the questions I had, and I'm not trying to shift gears away from the daycare thing, because I think that is definitely important, and I agree with Andrea that we can't have all these other things going on and kind of ignore any one of these particular items. We have to be multifaceted and kind of have our eyes on multiple tasks. But I just wanted to ask Chris quick, have we used the tax abatement regularly in the past in terms of a tool for economic development? And if not, could we better utilize it? And are there ways of improving upon that?
So, since I've been here, yeah, we have used tax abatement kind of on a regular basis for expansion projects. So windings, DLC, those projects have had tax abatement. There are other ways we can utilize it, and it's putting it, trying to put that together to make it more manageable, because usually we give 100% tax abatement, but I feel we should rein that in depending on the level of investment, to change the terms of the tax abatement and the percentage they get back. Also, touching on number of jobs created. So looking at tax abatement more as a negotiation tool based on investment and job creation to get to a certain level, instead of, hey, here's 100% tax abatement for 15 or 20 years.
Are you aware of any communities that use tax abatement in terms of housing development? Would that be a path we might want to consider, or is that something we want to? I think traditionally we've used TIF more often in that respect.
Yeah.
And would one be more advantageous than the other when we're talking about a certain type of project such as housing?
So housing, yeah, TIF would be the way to go for housing. I mean, it's specifically designed for that. Tax abatement is kind of the way to go if you're looking at commercial properties. We did, or I am looking into with the community development director to see if it's something we can use on downtown buildings. So for anyone improving buildings downtown, to see if tax abatement would actually work, but it would be more on a limited scale. So maybe it's a
That's-
5-year tax abatement.
Yeah, I was kind of heading with that, because I noticed that, housing downtown was one of the issues, and then abatement, and I didn't know if we were crossing those two paths
Yep.
or whatever.
That is something we're looking into. Yeah.
Okay.
A comment on housing I wanted to make too, that kind of ties two of these together. We have the technical center hopefully up and running this fall to teach kids trades so they will remain in our community and not move outside of New Ulm. And being part of the Chambers group the last 4 or 5 years, when we meet with the kids, high school students, and we ask them about where they wanted to live if they stayed in town, and almost all of them said, downtown, I want to live above the businesses downtown. So when it said develop rentals above the downtown businesses, it's like, ooh, key, lock those two together. But I also know that a lot of those businesses above the downtown businesses are in pretty rough shape. So I'll be curious to see how that develops and what that would look like. Because for business owners to say, yeah, I want to develop my upper level, but it's in really rough shape, how much do we help with that? And how much can we help with that? So, do we have any thoughts on that yet, or is that still just brainstorming yet?
To me, that's just in the brainstorming phase, because like you said, some of those apartments are in really bad shape, and what do you give them? You know, because again, we or the EDA has a finite amount of money,
Right.
and there's, you know, bigger projects that are coming down that are probably going to ask the EDA for money, you know, whether it's the mall or, you know, Target development, something like that. And so what do you set aside, you know, and we always have the discussion like, well, if we run out of money, just come back and ask us for more money. And I would always say, no, that's not the case. We set aside, you know, and I'll use the grants as a very good example. We set aside $50,000. When that money runs out, it runs out. We replenish it the next year, because there are other projects that come along, and we can't always just replenish because then we don't have money for the really big projects that come down the road. You know, it is unfortunate, but all our programs that we put out state in the application, this is first come, first serve, you know, and with the new business grant, there's not a time limit, you know, it's within the first year of operation. So unless you open in January, then you essentially have a full year you can apply when we replenish and just, hey, get your application in and we'll restock that. But you know, so when we look at that, it's how much money do you give for those projects? Because like you said, I mean, even with our rehab program, we had to up that amount because literally just a roof was $100,000. So we were only covering half of a roof. And, you know, walking into some of those apartments, I've been in other places that are a lot cleaner than that I didn't really feel that safe walking through some of those. So it's really, how do we figure that out, whether it's looking for state funding, but there's strings attached with that make it really hard to rent those out because it's state money. There's federal programs, but then there's federal strings attached. So, you know, trying to figure that out. And maybe that's where the tax abatement kind of comes in. You know, you put a little bit of investment back, you get some of the property tax back for a set amount of time. So there's things that we can work with, and it's talking with property owners and really seeing kind of what the vibe is downtown. I know that Mankato State or MSU Mankato, their their construction management professor there has this cool little camera that she can walk through a building and take a look at what's in there and then design an inside. And a lot of the projects that they have worked on, they've been within about $5,000 to $10,000 of what they projected that increase was going to be. So maybe that's something we can see if she would be willing to come down, and maybe the EDA kind of pays for that to show the property owners down there, hey, if you fix this up, this is what it could be, you know, and then you can sell your building, and then the person coming in, you know, has, oh, I have rental property, I have business property, and can kind of tie all that together. But, you know, I think when the mall project, if the mall project comes to fruition, I think that's really going to start spurring a lot more individuals to redo their upstairs into apartments. I know there's been talk about people wanting to do it, but I think once someone actually does it, I think it'll just keep on going.
Some apartments there that are very nice
Yeah.
downtown, really are very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And some that are probably at that intermediate level. Now, wouldn't it really be ideal to have the technical school actually they had a great carpentry program, help make this happen?
Yep.
I mean, could that happen? Sure, I think it potentially can. Why not? Something to look at. The only other thing on this grid that I looked at that I wanted to bring up that I'd like to see moved up, and that is requiring the NUEDC land. Can we move that at least up one block into an intermediate goal versus long-term? Thoughts?
I have mixed feelings on that.
Okay.
only, part of it's going back to what Chris just said, and I think the important thing to at least what I'm taking away from what you said is, we do have limited resources, and I think one of the things that we want to try to discern as we go through this grid is looking how we can best leverage those limited resources that we have. So we put in $1, somebody else puts in $1 or $2. I think we can kind of get more done for our buck if we can make considerations like that. And I think the other thing we want to try to do is, as a commission, is make a clear distinction between what's a grant and what's a loan. You know, loans get repaid, that money comes back to us, and then we're able to borrow it out again. When we start talking about grants, it's gone and it's gone forever. So I think we want to keep some of those pots and those resources of the grants especially somewhat limited, so that a business has got to survive and make it on its own at some point. And we absolutely want to be a part of an impetus to get the ball rolling, but at some point, they're going to have to stand on their own 2 feet. So I think that's an important consideration we want to make. So what does that mean for the land? Well, there's a couple things. That would be a pretty healthy investment for us to look at buying all those lots up. And I'm not saying that I'm personally against it. The only other consideration, and this is part of what this whole strategic planning process that we're going through with that consultant right now, is that I think for us to thrive as a commission, which is a public body, we need a strong partner in a private body. Now, the NUEDC's decided they're disbanding. That was the decision of their board. So they're winding down. They've made a huge commitment to the CTE Center. A huge part of their resources is going to that. Basically, that leaves them with this land, and then when that land gets sold, they've already earmarked that money to go to, I think, downtown rehabilitation. So we can keep those things in mind, but I just don't know if taking this on right now is in our best interest, only because once land gets acquired in a public body, somebody wants to come in and buy one of those lots, it has to be decided in a public sphere. It takes away a lot of the negotiation that happens when you're dealing with a private entity as opposed to a public one. That's my chief area of concern with that. So I would like to see, and this is my thinking for keeping it long-term, my hope is that a new private entity is generated and created after this process of this strategic planning with this partnership. If the NUDC doesn't want to pick that up and continue on with it, then maybe a new entity should be formed. And maybe those resources could go to that new entity. I don't know. Maybe it's too early to tell. At least that's my 2 cents worth on it, so. Mark, you're an NUDC member. What do you, I'd really like to hear from you right now.
Well, you really explained it well. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head there. And that's really coming from the partnership, everyone working with, and Jana King saying that it's very beneficial to have that private sector having ownership like that. So I think I'd wait to see a little bit how that plays out.
I think
We can wait a year and talk about it.
Yeah, we can
again.
keep it on our radar. It may come to that, there's no other alternative, but I would like to see what develops in this other avenue first and see where that leads us. It's not to say, because I believe NUDC at some point recently, they've got those lots listed with a realtor and they're supposed to be marketing that land. So it's not like it's sitting there on the shelf and nobody's aware of it. So if somebody came along and wanted to buy some land, it's available to be sold. So, you know, it is on the market, and so I think that that's important to remember as well. And like we did with DLC, we can play a role in acquiring the land if we're asked to and be a participant in that process. So I think we're still available to act on it. I know the NUDC's take on it was, you know, they don't want to, since they're winding down, the property tax issue is something for them. And, you know, there may be a solution that we could intervene in that regard as well. So, I think this process needs to move on for right now, and we'll see what develops.
I can live with it sitting there for another year,
Okay.
but then we're gonna talk.
We're going to talk, all right. Well, that's what we're here for. If nothing else, we're here to
That's right.
talk. Is there any other things we want to talk about on our grid? I think this is a great layout that you did, Heather. This is,
Yeah,
thank you
very
very
nice.
much, yes. Puts it all in a great perspective.
How often do you bring this grid forward to share, to review it?
First time I remember.
Well, I mean, it is fairly new. We developed it last year, and I see it as a living document that we need to, not just set aside on a shelf and forget about, but we need to,
Yeah, I think it'd be great
needs to be
periodically
active, and it
review
needs to
yeah.
evolve and change as the years go by.
I think over the last couple of years, we've tried to become more strategic in our, and not more active and less reactive maybe, and kind of have a vision moving forward, and that's exactly what this is. This has come through a couple years of discussion about, hey, what is it that we want to do moving forward? So we kind of keep these things in focus in front of us, so they don't go away and get set aside. And that was a great point about the daycare. It's been 4 years. It is very much time to maybe revisit that with a greater detail and more attention at this point.
So I don't think we need a motion on this, do we?
I don't think so. Maybe we can just move on? So that said, report on the Community Development Fund Committee, that's item 9.1. We want to receive an order of file for the Fund Development Fund. That's Chris and Jessica and myself, right? We were the committee?
Yes, we were. Commissioner President, Commissioners, so we did meet on December 17th to talk about whether or not the EDA should put money aside into a community development fund. And after some discussion, the conclusion was that we shouldn't have a community development fund, or the EDA shouldn't set money aside for a community development fund. But from that, discussion still ensued, and an idea was thrown out that, there's the common thread that the EDA is kind of this open checkbook. Hey, the EDA will pay for it, the EDA will pay for it. And so what was thrown out was an application process for anyone, including the city, if they're asking for money from the EDA, they would have to fill it out. And it would basically be, for lack of a better term, almost like a loan packet. And you would essentially be the loan committee. And what we would do is, once we received the packet of information, internal staff would get together, review it, get more documentation if necessary, kind of get the packet together, and then send that out to the board members well prior before the agenda goes out. So you have a lot more time to look through the packet, look through the request. If you had any questions, you could email those to us. We can get that information. And then when it actually is on the agenda, you could essentially have three options. You could table it for further information if we weren't able to get everything in time. You could approve, or you can deny. And I guess a fourth option is you can make modifications. Say they're asking for $250,000, and after you kind of look at what they're going to do, you're like, well, this project really is worth, $100,000 or, whatever that may be. You'll have that flexibility to kind of determine what you want to put in there. You don't necessarily have to give them what they request. So that's currently in the draft phase right now. I've sent it out to Dan and Jessica and gotten their feedback. So I'll incorporate some of that. I'm having internal staff look over it just to make sure we're kind of crossing all the I's, or dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. And then I'll have Roger give it a once over before we bring it. So I'm looking maybe the February or March meeting to bring that application for your approval to kind of push that forward. So you'll have control over funding, and when anyone asks like, hey, the EDA will fund it, well, here's the application, fill it out.
Yeah, and just a little context, a little history. Last year we were asked to help fund a couple park and rec projects, and that's where this discussion arose. It's like, okay, where does EDA end and community development start? And so I think what we're just trying to do is formalize and make a more specific process out of this, not just have people come and say, hey, we want some money from you. Well, here's the application, here's, sort of what our criteria is. Chris and Jessica and I, we talked about maybe developing a scoring model with that, but then we thought that might be going a little too far at this point. But I think just to formalize it and get it into writing is going to be an important step in the right direction. That way, everybody that can come, and the hope is we'll all, any request is going to receive equal consideration based on what we feel our specific criteria are relating to it forwarding economic development. So looking forward to that coming hopefully soon so we can take a look at it.
I'll offer a motion to receive and order filed the report from the Community Development Fund Committee.
First and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, should we call the roll for a vote?
Commissioner Bedker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson? Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
President Brum?
Yes. Item 9.2 is a resolution to commend Michael Schwartz for his 6 years of service on the Economic Development Authority Board.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading, commending Mike Schwartz for
Thank you.
his 6 years of service.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Otherwise, we'll,
Thank you very much.
yes, it was a great time having Mike on here. We'll go ahead and call the roll for a vote.
Commissioner Bedker? Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni? Yes. Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
President Brum?
Yes. Item 9.3 is to commend Charlie Schmitz for his 12 years of service.
I would love to offer the resolution, waive the reading, commending Charlie Schmitz for his 12 years of service with the EDA.
Second.
Any other discussion?
I'd make a comment. I worked with Charlie for 8 years on this committee, and he really helped lead us through a change. Former people that sat at this table finally said we needed to get out of the housing business, we needed to get on to more strategic economic development, and Charlie agreed, and he helped lead us through that process, and we had to get rid of lots, and we sat here and we staged homes, and we tried all kinds of things, and we weren't really very good at it. And so we knew we needed to get out and move on to some other stuff, and Charlie led us through that, and I appreciated his leadership and his dedication to the EDA, so thank you, Charlie.
Absolutely. I'm going to miss finding out where the fish are biting too. That's going to be tough, so.
Just as important.
Let's call roll for a vote.
Commissioner Bedker?
She said yes.
Commissioner
New-
Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
President Brum?
Yes. All right, on to item 10.1, Economic Development Director, Assistant City Manager Activity Report.
Actually, this is, Audra's been out for the past month, so this is kind of everything that I've been working on while she's been out. Just a couple of notes. So working with Winings on an incentive called the Foreign Trade Zone to see if that is something that will benefit them. Been working with the state and a private firm that specializes in the foreign trade zone. So hopefully we'll have some news by the end of the month to see if it is something that will benefit them or not. Grants, so the new relief grants, those have come out. We have had or approved 22 new grants. On the first round, we did 29, so I'll follow up and see what 29, the first one, for the first round, just the first round, not the all-encompassing second tier. So I'm going to reach out to those 7 businesses and see where there was overlap or where we're missing to make sure those 7 that we are missing do apply for that. We did do one city revolving loan this year for Midwest Precision Tooling. in the amount of 50,000. So we'll be closing hopefully by the end of the month, this month, early February. Our city attorney had a couple questions before he can draft those documents. And working Salesforce is almost up and running, so we've gone through the process, got all kind of the tabs, the bells and whistles that we want in it. So now it's just coordinating a training with them so we can get that. But what we've been doing with the chamber is any business that we've been working on since we started putting that in place, we've been starting to take that information so during the training we can start incorporating and get the hands-on experience, putting in actual data into the Salesforce. So that should be up and running hopefully by the end of the month as well. And then the website, we're currently redoing the website. There is going to be training today on that, on how to use the content management system so we can go through and do pages ourselves. They've pretty much transferred, I would say, 90% of the stuff over. There's some things that fell off, but they're going to use the training as, hey, this is how you add that page. This is how you edit it. So over the next 2 days, staff that will be editing the website will be able to do that. And so from that, hopefully, we'll be able to really have a more robust economic development page, that kind of is the one-stop shop for anyone looking to expand or relocate. And then, the entrepreneurial side of things. So that's kind of where we're at.
We can put our application form out on that website eventually too, I would presume, right?
Yeah, and so, when we do those, there'll be a specific process. I don't know if at this point in time they'll be able to fill out the applications online just because there's a lot of sensitive information.
Right.
But we
paper
will
or a
have
PDF
them.
copy or something
Yeah,
like that.
we will have
sure.
all that stuff online for them to find.
Great.
I'll offer a motion to accept the report.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's call the roll for a vote.
Commissioner Bedker?
Yes.
Commissioner Fix? Oh, sorry.
She would have said yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson? Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
President Brum?
Yes. All right. That is it. Our agenda is clear, so we'll call the meeting adjourned.